The call came while I was standing in the kitchen, rinsing a glass that no longer felt like mine. "If you want to join Thanksgiving, come wash the dishes," my daughter-in-law snapped over the phone. Her voice was sharp, commanding, like I was staff in my own family. I looked at the diamond bracelet on the counter, the one I'd given her 6 months earlier, custom cut, Swiss grade, a quiet apology for things I never did wrong. She'd thrown it away last week, said it felt cheap. I smiled at the sink. "Enjoy," I said. I hung up before she could breathe again. Minutes later, I posted nothing. I sent nothing. I simply changed my display picture. A wide terrace, white stone, alpine light cutting through glass walls. The villa in Switzerland, one of many, caught the sun like it had been waiting. My phone began to vibrate, once, then again. By the time I dried my hands, it had rung 71 times. I didn't answer. I already knew what panic sounded like, and I knew exactly why it had arrived now. They thought I was old, disposable, a man whose wealth had outlived his relevance. My son married her 3 years ago. She came wrapped in manners and gratitude, soft words, borrowed humility. She called me Papa like it cost her nothing. The change was gradual, always is. First, she corrected me at dinners. Then she dismissed my advice. Then she joked about my old money habits in front of guests. My son laughed with her. That was the first betrayal. The second came quieter. The diamond gift, a peace offering after she refused to invite me to a family trip I'd paid for. She smiled when I handed it to her. 2 weeks later, I found it in a drawer, untouched. "I don't like wearing reminders," she said. "It's tacky." Tacky! That night, I watched her whisper to my son in the hallway. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the look they shared. Conspiracy is visible if you've lived long enough. Then came the call. Thanksgiving. Dishes. Not an invitation, a command. That was when the pieces stopped pretending to be separate. This wasn't disrespect, it was strategy. She wasn't pushing me away, she was replacing me. I did nothing. That's how you win. I smiled at family dinners. I paid for renovations. I complimented her cooking. I played the aging patriarch slipping into irrelevance. Inside, I sharpened. Phone records first. Not hers, my son's. Late-night calls. Numbers saved under women's names that weren't women. Financial audits followed. My accounts, the trusts, amendments I hadn't authorized but had been suggested by her. I hired no investigators. I needed silence, not noise. Instead, I watched. She began hosting, posting, flaunting a lifestyle that wasn't hers yet. She spoke openly about when they'd move into the main house, about how my assets would eventually consolidate. Eventually. I let her believe I was fading. I let her believe I was confused. And then I bought the villa in Switzerland. Not for pleasure, for punctuation. I transferred ownership of everything that mattered into structures she didn't know existed. Old frameworks, names she'd never researched, jurisdictions she'd never bothered to pronounce correctly. Greed makes people sloppy. She was already spending money she hadn't stolen yet. The truth didn't arrive with drama. It came as a PDF, a draft agreement, prepared by her lawyer, a future plan for my care, assisted living, asset management, power of attorney. My signature, badly forged, sat at the bottom. I invited them to dinner, just us three. I served wine, Swiss, expensive. She complimented it without knowing why it mattered. After dessert, I slid the folder across the table. No words. She opened it. My son paled first. She tried to speak, failed. Tried again. "It's not," she began. I raised a finger. Silence returned. "You planned my disappearance," I said calmly, "before my death." Her hands shook. My son stared at the table like it might forgive him. I watched them both the way you watch a structure collapse, interested but detached. I stood. "I transferred everything," I said, "weeks ago." Her breath caught. "The trusts, the companies, the properties, including this house." She laughed once, hysterical. "You can't—" "I already did." I handed her my phone. The villa photo glowed on the screen. Her phone rang in her purse, again and again. She reached for it. I closed my hand over hers. 71 calls, I said softly. That's how many times panic tried to reach me. I leaned in. You threw away a diamond because you thought it was the last one I had. I straightened. You were wrong. I walked out. Behind me, something broke. Not glass. Illusions.
I live quietly now. The Alps don't ask questions. They don't beg. They don't pretend to love you while counting your bones. I hear my son left her. Too late. Trust decays faster than money. She still calls, sometimes. I don't answer. I don't hate her. Hatred requires attachment. She wanted inheritance. She earned absence. The diamond is still in my drawer, where it belongs, unworn, untouched, like my mercy.